Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. As a reminder, please note that board meetings are being recorded for the convenience of those unable to attend this video conference. A recording and closed captioning will be posted to the BERS YouTube channel following the meeting. Alex, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Vasti Acosta.
Present.
Thank you. Tom Allen.
Present.
Thank you. Tazeen Azad.
Present.
Thank you. Russell Buckley.
I present for Lindsay Oates.
Thank you, Russ. Janelle Chacon.
Present.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
Present.
Thank you. Gregory Faulkner.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Angela Green.
Present.
Thank you. Anthony Lopez. John Maderick.
Present.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt.
Present.
Thank you, Don. Alan Ong. Caleres Salas Ramirez. Thomas Shepard.
Present.
Thank you. Jacqueline Tacarante. Karina Taveras.
Present.
Thank you. And Gladys Ward.
Present.
Thank you.
That's a quorum, Alex?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, sir. The first order of business is calendar item number 1, noting the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Retirement held on March 15th, 2022. May I have a motion to consider?
Motion to consider.
Donald Nesbitt.
Thank you, Gladys. I'm going to get the second from Donald. When I call out all in favor, if you wish to vote in favor of the resolution, please unmute yourself and respond in favor with your name. Similarly, if you wish to oppose or abstain from a particular vote, please unmute yourself and respond accordingly when I call out any opposed or abstentions. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I will move to approve the minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, Russ.
Donald.
Aye,
Aye, Tom.
Hi, Janelle.
Aye, Tom.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Gladys.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Abstention, Vasti Acosta.
Thank you, Vasti. Any others?
Abstention, Tazeen Azad.
Thank you. Thank you, Tazeen. Nice to meet you both. So registering those 2 abstentions, the motion carries. Next on our agenda is the Executive Director's update. Sandy, would you like to share any remarks with us?
Yes, thanks, Russ. Just to note, this may be our last virtual meeting unless the OML laws are suspended again. We would expect to have a meeting at 55 Water Street. I can tell you we are preparing to have extreme social distancing and multiple rooms available. So we are getting ready for that. To follow up on the Controller's April 4th Earth Month press release, a number of trustees asked about the investments in the $7 billion sustainable allocation that was announced at that time. Specifically, asked about companies that make up the allocation and what MWBE investments were included. We heard from the Controller, thank you, Allison Hirsch, that there were no MWBE-related assets in this allocation of investments, but that efforts to identify and commit to MWBE investments is being pursued with discussions around private equity first-time early-stage manager partners to examine the opportunity set for MWBE managers that have such strategies. And we will be following up with the Controller's Office on the companies that make up the $7 billion Climate Solutions investment allocation and expect to get this information in the next week or 2. Hiring update, as of April 8th, open headcount is 16, which is a backslide from the last time we had an announcement. We do have 5 new hires starting in the next few days. Providing everyone clears background investigation, we should have a headcount shortage of 11 as of April 18th, which is good news for us. We're making progress. Just a little bit of information about our intern program. Every summer we run an intern program. we're expanding it with a relationship we're building with both Baruch and the National Association of Securities Professionals. Our fiscal ops operation has hired recently a Baruch student. He started last week, working a couple of days a week now, and we're expanding that relationship. Antonio is hiring a Baruch student for investment strategy who starts April 25th. Sally Rivera is going to hire a NASP intern. These are high school students brought to us by the National Association of Securities Professionals, and that will be someone supporting members' communications, and that position will open up in June. We expect to hire additional interns in data analytics and internal audit, and we continue to develop that program. It's been very successful for us. I would like to recognize both Aday and Chitra, our internal audit directors and fiscal operations director, for an NCBERS recognition for transparency. The certificate of transparency was awarded to NYCBERS for its participation in the 2021 NCBERS Public Retirement System Study, seeks to further open disclosure, data collection, and encourage public's understanding of public retirement systems. This study is in addition to our use of CEM benchmarking to analyze our system's performance and is part of our efforts to continuously improve. And then finally, education and training opportunities for trustees. The NCBERS annual conference, trustee education and national accredited fiduciary training, May 21st to 25th in Washington, D.C. Registration is still open. We have a number of trustees who are planning on attending. We can continue to enroll. I would encourage you to consider this. And we will be doing our own training operation. Antonio Rodriguez and his team at NYCBERS Investment Strategy will be conducting a half-day trustee investment strategy onboarding conference on May 4th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in person at BERS office, 55 Water Street. Antonio and his team will present BERS investment strategy, our policies, and our consultants, Siegel, Marco, and Axia, will make presentations and be available to answer questions. The keynote will be Jason Lamon from Lennox Partner Solution, our DEI data systems consultant. I hope you can attend, and please put it on your calendar. And that's it from me, Russ.
Thanks, Sandy. Any quick questions for Sandy before we move on to our agenda today?
Yeah, just
Yes, Sandy. Oh,
I don't know
hi,
who's
Tom.
first.
Go ahead, Gladys, why don't you start?
Okay. Hi, Sandy. Is that only one day? Did you say May 4th? What was the day that you said
Yeah,
for
it's
the training?
Wednesday, May 4th. I can confirm that for you,
Is
yes.
that the only window? I would have loved to attend that, but that is the third day of my company's board meeting, so I can't get
So
out of it.
I
Like a trial.
can answer that. So we are going to be recording it, Gladys, as well.
Oh, okay.
And so we will be recording the session. So if you cannot attend that day, we will have, and we can always do one-on-ones, but in addition, we will be recording the session for trustees that cannot attend.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Antonio.
Greg, I think you had a question, and then Tom.
Yeah, I can't let it go by. I was a little concerned about the controller's response on the investments in, green technology, and that there weren't any women and minority-owned businesses included in the investment. I'm just curious as to what the outreach was, and I'm particularly concerned since the controller regularly publishes a grade for agencies in their outreach to women and minority-owned businesses, and I'm surprised that they weren't able to include a minority-owned firm in that investment. I did identify. I went online and found that there were a number of minority-owned firms that are involved in this, in that area. And so I'm also, if we could follow with the controller and find out what was the outreach to these groups.
So, Sandy, if it's helpful, I can jump in for one moment.
I can't hear.
Yeah, Allison, if you wouldn't mind speaking up, but please. We don't have this item on the agenda, but I know there was chatter. So let's do a little bit of time here on this, but not too much.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to be able to answer the question as an investment professional since I am not one, but I can say that we have talked to Sandy about having the folks who run the MWBE investment program and DEI work, as well as the broader climate work, come and present to the board at a future date. I think this issue in particular is that there's a very specific way of identifying these companies. And so there are two programs that aren't necessarily overlapping, is my understanding, in the way that you're asking. So the data was hard to come by, but we will have a future agenda, an opportunity to listen to the folks who are actually doing this work and can answer your questions and respond and hear from the concerns.
That would be
Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, it just would be hard for me to vote in favor of investment opportunities where there wasn't even an effort, and that's what it sounds like. There wasn't even an effort made to include a minority firm or woman-owned firm in that portfolio.
Greg, we'll continue to get more information on this for you, and it's high on the list of objectives for Antonio's group. One of the reasons that we have a presentation on May 4th from Lenox Park is to discuss our efforts in that area. Lenox Park is a dedicated consultant on DEI advisory and data for our investments. So,
and I trust you, and I believe you, but I can't count the number of times I hear it's always high on the priority, and that doesn't happen.
Fair enough.
Tom, did you have a question you wanted to address before we move forward with the agenda?
Yeah, I think you answered it for Gladys. But I intend on showing up for this May 4th training. You said from 9 to 1. Did I get that right?
Yes, 9 to 1.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's going to be in person at 55 Water, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Are you going to be? Can you send like a calendar invite or something, just so I can make sure that
Absolutely.
it's on my calendar?
And we will
They're
have
coming.
an agenda. And we'll have an agenda for you this week.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. That was it.
Thanks, everyone. The next item on this afternoon's agenda are calendar items 2 through 17, the ordinary business of BERS. May I please have a motion to consider calendar items 2 through 17?
So move, Tom Shepard.
Got a first from Tom, second from John. Alex, can you please tell us about the ordinary business of BERS?
These are all the retirements, refunds, and death benefits processed since the last meeting of this board.
Thank you, Alex. We will now vote on these items. All those in favor of approving calendar items numbers 2 through 17, please indicate your approval now. I, Russ.
Hi,
Hi, Janelle.
Hi, Angela Green.
Hi, Tom Shepard.
Hi, Basti.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you. The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item number 18, the appointment of an alternate disability committee member. May I have a motion to consider?
Motion for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Deb, on a first, and then can I have a second, please?
A second.
So moved, Donald Nesbitt. Second.
Thank you, Donna. If you guys could just, everyone, when you make a motion, just state your name as well. I can't always necessarily see if you raise your hand or recognize the sound of your voice just auditorily. So at the March meeting, we appointed members of the Disability Committee and their alternates. Just so you recall, the current membership of the Disability Committee is myself and Lindsay with 1 seat, John and Nicholas as another seat, Donald and Sean as a 3rd seat, Anthony Lopez with Tom Shepard as an alternate, and then the 5th seat being held by Janelle. We're trying to get I guess a 10th member, an alternate for Janelle, and I understand that Dr. Acosta has since volunteered. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you for volunteering and for your service. I'd like to take a vote on Dr. Acosta's appointment as Janelle's alternate to the Disability Committee. All those in favor of Dr. Acosta as Janelle's alternate, please say aye now. Aye, Russ.
Hi, Tom Shepard.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you again, Dr. Acosta. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to meeting with you on the Disability Committee meeting. The next item on our agenda is calendar item number 19, authorization to extend an agreement with Skill Director to provide competency assessment and development services to BERS. May I have a motion to consider?
Greg Faulkner move for unanimous consent.
Greg, thank you. May I have a second? Thank you, John. So Lydia, the BERS Deputy Director of Learning and Development, is here to tell us about this resolution. Lydia, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, of course. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lydia Amim. I'm the Learning and Development Deputy Director. So this is a 1-year extension of an agreement with Skill Director, and Skill Director is an online tool that helps staff to assess their professional skills and development, follow a tailored learning plan for closing any identified skill gaps. And of course, an opportunity to engage in feedback cycle between themselves and their manager. The cost of the renewal is $17,160 for 1-year term. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Lydia. Any questions for Lydia from the BERS board? Hearing none, I will move to vote on this item. All those in favor of calendar item number 19, please voice your approval now. Aye, Russ.
Hi, Janelle. Hi, Karina.
Hi, Angela Green.
Hi, Tom Shepard.
Hi, Gladys Ward.
Hi, Basti.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item number 20, authorization to enter into an agreement with Industrial Staffing Services Incorporated to provide temporary staffing services to BERS. May I have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Thank you, Deb. Second, John. Michelle, BERS's Director of Human Resources, is here to tell us about this resolution. Michelle, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the Director of HR for BERS. My name is Michelle Pyram. BERS has released a request for proposals for temporary staffing services back in June of 2021. We received 16 vendor proposals, which were thoroughly vetted and scaled down to 11 based on each vendor's ability to meet the agency's RFP requirements. The committee then scored and evaluated 11 oral presentations provided by each vendor. Based on a majority vote, the committee concluded that Industrial Staffing was the preferred vendor of choice. Industrial's track record of adequately supporting New York City public sector agencies, coupled with their ability to effectively source candidates and provide competitive pricing, confirmed the committee's decision. While we hire in a market that is currently plagued by the Great Resignation, Industrial's medical and dental offerings, as well as their defined benefit plan option, allows our agency to provide attractive, appealing, and competitive offers to our temporary candidates. Thus, for these reasons, Industrial Staffing is the preferred temporary staffing vendor for BERS. There is a 3-year term for the contract with 2 1-year options to renew. The cost of the first year is also expected not to exceed $2.5 million.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions from the Board of Trustees on this contract? Hearing none, I will now move to vote on this calendar item number 20. All those in favor, please say aye now. Aye, Russ.
Aye.
Hi.
Angela Green.
Hi,
Hi, Tom Shepard.
Hi, Basti.
Gladys Ward.
Hi, Tom Allen.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is calendar item number 22, divestment from Russian securities. May I have a motion to consider?
So moved, Tom Shepard.
Thank you, Tom. May I have a second?
Seconded, Angela Green.
Thank you, Angela. Antonio, could you please tell us about this resolution?
Yes, and as members of the committee know, we voted to divest from Russian securities last month. However, typically when we ask for a divestment vote, we've received opinions from our consultants and our investment advisor, the comptroller's office, as well as an opinion from the law department. So we went back and got opinions from Siegel Marco advisors on the call today, the law department, as well as a message from the comptroller's office, all stating that they're concurrent and that this would be a de minimis and essentially have no impact on the risk-adjusted return of the portfolio. So we have to rerun this, and so we're asking for another vote of the investment of the Russian securities from our portfolio. Happy to have Siegel Marco advisors add any comments.
Yeah, just reinforce what you said, Antonio. The diminished amount, it was 3% at the start of the crisis, and it's declining in terms of the value. It's very hard to trade these securities, so we might have some exit issues. And you said we're looking at how much kind of we'll call it tracking error, how different it makes our outlook for return look versus what we expected. But given the small size, we should not be an issue. And I think that was pretty much Bam's opinion too.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Antonio. We're basically, there's no change in the direction given here, right? We're just adding sort of a couple whereas clauses to the resolution denoting that we received legal analysis, we received investment analysis, just kind of, I don't want to call it CYA, but there's really no functional difference now.
Quick question: is this more symbolic, or is this really? I mean, because I read that the Russian government was able to somehow block the disinvestment. Is this? Would it actually happen? Or maybe I misread it.
I would say this.
Go ahead, Antonio. Go ahead.
So there's a couple things. So one, I mean, there's two major reasons why it'd be difficult to sell. The first is that there's kind of generally no liquidity, and so which we talked about last time, and so the ADRs, we mostly own ADRs and GDRs in the portfolio. So these are listed on the American exchanges. That being said, I think there is and I'd love to if we have representative from the comptroller's office who also weigh on the process right now. But essentially, I would say that'd be the biggest reason that we wouldn't be able to sell these. So, Allison, I don't know if you have any comments on this as well.
Nope, I think you got it. I mean, I think the resolution also calls for, a prudent disinvestment at the time is right. So it is at some point we expect the markets to reopen, and when they do, we'll deal with it accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I think if your question is, does it have an effect? There's a lot of effect from this on Russia. I mean, these companies are not going to be able to raise capital. They've been disengaged from the world financial system. I mean, it's putting a serious dent in their ability to function.
Okay.
This is Tom Shepard. So I just want to make sure. I know the last time we had this conversation, BERS exposure was somewhere around 3 million. Is that still the case?
That's the number on the cover. Like I said, but essentially, again, the other side of not having a ton of liquidity is not actually having fantastic pricing, and so from that perspective, that's the last measured amount. But you ultimately need a buyer to sell, and so
right.
But that's the marks that we have.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions from the board on calendar item number 22, divestment from Russian securities, part 2? Hearing none further, I will now move to vote on this item. All those in favor of calendar item number 22, please vote aye now. Aye, Russ.
Aye, Angela Green.
Hi, Greg.
Hi,
Aye,
Khalil.
Gladys Ward.
Hi,
Aye,
Karina.
Basti.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is calendar item number 21, authorization to amend an agreement with the Burgess Group, LLC to provide quantitative portfolio technology to the Board of Education Retirement System. May I have a motion to consider?
I so move, Gladys Ward.
Thank you, Gladys. Second from John. Antonio, can you tell us about this resolution? One back in your program. Sorry about skipping ahead.
No worries. Thank you. So back in November, the BERS investment strategy recommended extending an agreement with CAISA, which is our quantitative portfolio technology, essentially our ability to do performance and portfolio analytics for the BERS investment program, utilizes this system. It's kind of the flagship and kind of the hub for our analysis. Subsequent to that agreement, and this went through a full request for proposal process. Subsequent to that agreement, the CAISA was purchased by the Burgess Group. And in order to then do a new agreement with the Burgess Group, as they were going through the acquisition, we asked for an extension to the previous agreement while we worked out a new one. We are still in the process of working out that final agreement. So we're asking for an extension for an additional 3 months all the way till May. The cost not to exceed $21,750. So we'll extend the agreement through May and then start the new agreement after that with Burgess as a signatory rather than CAISA. Again, the amount is not to exceed $21,750 for the 3-month extension. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Antonio. Any questions for Antonio on calendar item number 21 with Burgess?
Hi, Russell. This is Tom Shepard. I do want to just acknowledge that Dr. Caleres Salas Ramirez is here, and Alan Ong is here also.
Thanks, Tom.
Antonio, I have one question. Are you sure that up to May is enough time?
So we had if we need more time, we will definitely ask for it. The issue, and this is kind of going back, is I'll be honest. Once firms get purchased by large corporations, it's taken some time. So it's already kind of been a 5 to 7 month extension. They've agreed. The hang up really, and this is kind of not revealing too much, was around the structure of the agreement, literally what it looks like. Burgess uses a certain template. We have a certain template that's approved by the law department. They finally agreed to use our template. That's it's funny enough that those are kind of hang up sometimes, but that's really the issue. And so I'm confident by the end of May we will be able to hammer out something. And if not, I'll come back to the board for an additional extension while we hammer out the final details. But I think we're pretty close.
Thank you.
Thanks, Antonio. Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, we'll now move to vote on calendar item number 21. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, Russ.
Aye, Angela Green.
Aye, Tom.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Gladys Ward.
Hi, Tom Shepard.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item on our agenda is calendar item number 23, a quarterly performance update. May I have a motion to discuss?
So moved, Tom Shepard.
Thank you, Tom. May I have a second?
Second, Deb.
Thank you, Deb. Antonio, can you please give us an update on our investment performance?
Thank you.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
All right, so I'll start from the beginning. All right, so this is an item that the board will receive again on a quarterly basis. And I'll start from the beginning. Some background on the current division of responsibility between the Board of Trustees and the Executive Committee. So in December of 2022, the board passed a resolution giving the BERS Executive Committee authority to approve certain fund investments. Last month, we voted for the new Executive Committee, which is constituted on an annual basis. As a condition of this authority, BERS investment strategy must report to the board on a quarterly basis on overall performance and progress towards meeting our program goals, which are set on an annual basis. Importantly, the full Board of Trustees retains authority over the major investment program decisions. So approving the investment policy statement, the guiding document, the full board still approves that. Approving asset allocation, which structures our portfolio around equities, fixed income, alternative investments to meet our annual rate of return, still approved by the Board of Trustees. Hiring our investment consultants, so in this case, our general consultants, Siegel Marco Advisors, and our private markets specialist consultant, Axia. In addition, the full board of trustees approves active investment funds, so funds from managers that pick securities, anything over $250 million in the public markets and anything over $50 million in the private markets must come to the full board and cannot be approved by the executive committee. So from our standpoint, really, it's about dividing kind of the long-term big picture items with the full board and the month-to-month decisions on individual investment funds with the executive committee. The executive delegation allows the full board to really focus on those long-term goals of the program to see if we're meeting our obligation, if we're meeting our goals. So to give you a big example, you'll hear more about this on May 4th and subsequent trainings. Our long-term target return is 7% annualized on the qualified pension plan. So to give you an idea where we are now, our trailing 5 years is actually close to 11% annualized. Our funded ratio target, we feel comfortable and with a plan anywhere between 80 and 100%. As of June 30th, 2021, our market value of assets funded ratio was at 122%. In addition, we want to make sure that we're incorporating the investment policy statement objectives in our investment process. So that includes cost consciousness, making sure that we only spend money for active management when it makes sense, environmental, social, and governance concerns, diversity and inclusion concerns, and technology integrations. We think this is a good division of responsibility. Again, focusing the full board on the long-term goals and allowing a subset of the board to kind of the month-to-month where there are hard deadlines for approvals. BERS's current asset allocation was set in 2020, and it helps us to meet our 7% return target over the next 3 to 5 years. So getting to that 7% return with the least amount of volatility that is prudent. I actually want to start at the very, very big picture about how we divide our assets from a very broad perspective. And so that's why I'm saying public equities, you're seeing public equities, public fixed income, alternative investments, economically targeted investment, and cash are our 5 major asset class groups. Our target allocation in public equity will always be our largest allocation, is currently at 47%. So that's public stocks, and that's divided between U.S. and international equities. Our current allocation is as of February 28, 2022. We hope to have 331 numbers in the next 2 days. So we're at 46.89, so we're really close to target on public equity. Public fixed income, so you're thinking core fixed income, government bonds, investment grade securities from corporations, mortgage-backed securities, high yield bonds from corporates, and then inflation-linked securities. Our target allocation is 27%. We're a bit over that right now at 30.5%. Alternative investments, which include private equity, private real estate, private infrastructure, and private credit. So anything that is not listed on an exchange or publicly traded. Our target allocation is 26%. We are currently at 20.62%, so a bit underweight. And that's really in private credit, which is a new asset class. We only started that in 2020. And then real estate and infrastructure. We are actually slightly over target, around target for private equity. Economically targeted investments, we don't have a target allocation for that, but we can allow for up to 2%. And that really for us right now are things like workforce housing. This program is run directly out of the comptroller's office. And so things like workforce housing, it is some things like construction loans, the AFL-CIO HIT program, and a few other mostly kind of housing, Mitchell-Lama kind of redevelopment, things like that. And then finally, cash. We have a 0% target of cash. And generally, we want to be fully invested at all times. Currently at 1.5% cash, which is not too far above. The 0 point can go up to the special circumstances go up to 5%, but typically we'd like to run at 0% cash overall. So that's our target allocation, and then our current allocation. We're not too far from most of our targets. Really quickly, and again, we'll get a lot more of this when we speak with you all on May 4th. We have, we judge our performance against several benchmarks. And benchmarks really are kind of giving our guidance for essentially the amount of risk we would like to take into the portfolio, and from our perspective, a simple portfolio. So one that does not have necessarily all the bells and whistles or all the alternative investments. And so we've judged our portfolio against 3 different benchmarks. The one is the reference portfolio. That is U.S. stocks, U.S. bonds. Generally speaking, we are our targets tend to be around 70% equities and 30% fixed income, or 65-35. We use 70-30. It's a slightly more aggressive benchmark. We also look at it from a global perspective, and so we are a global investor. While heavily weighted into the U.S., about 75% of our investments are U.S. and either U.S. domiciled or U.S. sovereign bonds or U.S. corporates. We do invest all across the world, and so we use the global equity benchmark as well as another way to kind of look at how we're doing against a simple passive portfolio. Then we also have what I call the policy PME benchmark, or the policy public market equivalent. So we take our alternative assets, we take the private market assets and use a substitute for them in the public markets. Generally speaking, private market investments are much more expensive than public market investments. So if we're going to do them, we have to make sure that the performance is worth the increased expense that we're paying. So again, this is as of 2/28/2022. I'm hoping for folks at the executive committee. Just got word from Kaisa. We hope to, in Burgess, hope to have the accounting uploads done in the next day or two. So we might have the preliminary 331 data by the executive committee on Thursday. Right now, as of 2/28, we're at around $8.7 billion in total assets, a little bit below our peak, which is at $9 billion. As you all know, the market's been pretty turbulent so far. The fiscal year to date, we're down about 37 basis points. And so down 0.37% for the year. That compares favorably to all of our benchmarks, for the fiscal year. Basically all markets are down right now. As I checked yesterday, the only market that's up of our major asset classes is U.S. equity. All other for the fiscal year, all other, so international equities, U.S. core bonds, U.S. high yields, U.S. inflation protected securities are all down for the year. Over the trailing 1 year, we're a little bit below our target, which is of 7%. The U.S. reference portfolio is above that a bit. Global markets and then the policy PME benchmark are both well below that. Trailing 3 years and trailing 5 years were all well above 7%. The markets generally over the past 5 to 10 years, really 10 years have been fantastic for us. And so we've beaten those particular benchmarks. Generally speaking, you'll always kind of see this. U.S. has done better than international kind of across the globe. So you'll see that first reference portfolio handily beating all the rest of them over both 3 and 5 year period. That is because it's a U.S. only benchmark. From a global basis, we've outperformed both our policy PME and global reference portfolio. In addition, wanted to give you kind of what the executive committee has done and what they've approved in the first quarter. So the executive committee has approved 5 funds. In February, we approved 3 funds: public fixed income, Bivium Capital Partners for $100 million. That is the authority that we had to approve it. New public market manager below $250 million. I will note that Bivium Capital Partners runs the Emerging Manager Program. It is an MWBE manager. Also in February, approved 2 private equity funds, Wells Carson Anderson Stowe and Lexington Capital Partners for $40 and $30 million respectively. These are both what are called successor funds. So we've invested with Wells Carson and Lexington Capital over multiple funds. And so the executive committee has authority for funds when they have not materially changed. And finally, in February, we also approved a real estate fund, Airmont Capital Real Estate Fund 5 for $40 million, also a successor fund. We've invested successfully with Airmont Capital in the past. In March, we only had 1 fund, Tomo Bravo 15, invested $27 million between the fund and the co-investment. It's a new private market manager, but it's below the $50 million threshold. We have a lot more funds to come in the preceding months. So one of the big things we need to make sure is that we try and from a annual perspective on whether or not we're meeting our goals or whether or not we hit our private market pacing targets. Through Q1, we've approved, we look like we're going to be on pace with private equity and real estate. Right now, we have not done anything in infrastructure or opportunistic fixed income / private credit. However, we have quite a few infrastructure managers coming in the next 2 months, and then OFI managers mostly in the late spring to early summer to get us to our targets. We'll do a more fulsome presentation to the full board on the private market pacing in June, July, when we go through where we are for the half year. Obviously, we didn't have a meeting in January, so some things did get pushed back. But I think moving forward, we feel pretty confident, particularly in private equity. I think we've had a fantastic start working with the Bureau of Asset Management, and I think same thing for real estate. Finally, there are plenty of opportunities for additional discussion and training. Even though the executive committee is made up of 5 trustees with alternates, everyone is invited. Everyone can come to the executive committee meeting, but for quorum and voting, That's what we have. But if you want to come to attend where we have the discussions about individual funds and managers, we do not hesitate to attend. Our next meeting is Thursday, April 14th. It's from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. This will be probably the last time it'll be the second week of the month. We're looking to move it to the third week to line up better with the joint New York City Employee Retirement System BERS manager presentation meeting. These types of discussions will be on a quarterly basis. So January, April, July, and October. So the month after each quarter end, we will have these reports to the full board. Other topics for consideration. So obviously performance of the portfolio will be of the utmost importance, but we'll talk about kind of our efforts in diversity and inclusion, technology, and environmental, social, and governance integration. May 4th, 2022, onboarding at 55 Water Street. Again, we would love people to attend in person. We cannot, we'll be recording it. And please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, to your consultants for any information that you need. And in addition, Sandy already talked about this. NYCBERS in May in Washington, D.C. It is I think the second to last week, the last week of the month in May. And they do a ton of trustee trainings on the weekend and the full conference during the week. So that is it from me, Russ. I don't know. I can leave this up for a bit, but happy to answer any questions from the board.
I appreciate it, Antonio. I think if you could circulate this deck to the board members at the conclusion of the meeting, that would be great. I will be making an effort to attend that. I've got the May 4th blocked on my calendar. I'll be at the NYCBERS in May, and appreciate the performance stats that you showed us. Any questions from the board for Antonio on anything that he just ran through?
Okay.
Great, thank you, Antonio. Nothing to vote on here, so we will move on to the next item on our agenda. Just calendar item number 24, authorization to enter into an agreement with D.W. Simpson & Co. to provide actuarial recruiting services. May I have a motion to consider?
So moved, Tom Shepard.
I got John for a first. I'll take Tom for the second. So Alex, would you like to tell us about this resolution? Mr. Kazazis?
Hi, are we looking at
Look
noting?
at the actuarial one.
Yeah, I think we have Mike Samet here, the acting chief actuary. So I think that he can speak to us about this.
Go ahead, Mike.
You just dropped it on him, Alex. That was the point.
We got a pretty rough echo here.
Okay. You have an echo? Okay. I wasn't on the last call, but let me tell you what I know about all this, is that 2 recruiting firms were interviewed. One of them was D.W. Simpson. And after discussion, it was decided that D.W. Simpson was going to be selected as the recruiting firm to look for the next chief actuary. Originally, 2 firms were, requests for proposals were sent to, I think, 5 or 6 firms to begin with. 2 responded, D.W. Simpson and another one. D.W. Simpson had brought their new business development guy to the call. And so then there was a subsequent call with the actual recruiter. And after speaking with them, the committee decided to go and select D.W. Simpson as the firm. And that's my understanding. The only other thing I know about it, again, I missed this last call because I was stuck. I couldn't get an airplane back with all the mess last weekend or the weekend before. The only other thing I know about this is that that the recruiter said that she's going to need a couple of weeks to figure out how to approach this. And so because of that, there was no call this week, and the next one will be this coming Monday.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And I guess if you could mute yourself, perfect. Thank you. As the representative along with Donald on the actuarial search committee, I suppose I could speak to this a little bit. But I think, Mike, you hit the nail on the head. The selection firm, or I guess it's the selection group, has selected D.W. Simpson. My understanding of the actual transaction that's going to happen here is that the other 2 pension funds within New York City that we share statutory responsibility, or we all individually have statutory responsibility to appoint an actuary. Teachers and NYCERS will both actually be splitting the cost of this evenly, and that NYCERS will actually be the one responsible for the contracting of DW Simpson. So I don't expect any costs to accrue to BERS for this search, nor do I expect any contracting to occur on BERS's behalf directly. But you know, we're all, as part of this search committee, we're all kind of in on it together. You know, both of the firms that we interviewed were great. I think ultimately we went with the strength of teams over maybe a different firm that had more strengths and centered around an individual. The timeline that I get a sense from is we're kind of impaneling a blue ribbon actuarial interview panel at this point. There's some names being thrown around. Mike, I think you might even be a part of that yourself, which would be great. And then once we reconvene in a couple weeks, we will ideally get down to candidate interviewing and selection from both trustees involved, as well as the blue ribbon interview panel. And what I mean by that is we're basically going to get some actuarial experts, because it's very complicated, this actuarial stuff. And, you know, it's assessing whether or not an actuary is qualified to be the chief actuary. I think I can speak for all trustees when I say it may be beyond all of our expertise. It is a remarkably complicated industry. So the trustees will certainly be involved in interviewing the candidates that the search team approves. But we will also be deferring to a certain extent to the blue ribbon panel as well, to make sure that we're hiring someone who is qualified. So you'll certainly be hearing more updates from myself and Donald Nesbitt, who is also on the search committee on behalf of BERS. And yeah, Donald, do you have anything you want to add to that? If you're there and able to unmute.
Russ, when you're done, could I have a word, please, about the contracting specifically?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the latest information I have is that this is going to be a 4-part contract involving NYCERS, TRS, BERS, and DW Simpson. So, and I've reviewed the contract also and provided my comments. So, what I was thinking is to ask the board to approve our entering into this contract along with the other 3 systems. This is why this is on for action today.
Got it. Got it.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Russell, it's Basti. I have a question. What's your target date to actually have this person on board?
Ideally, June. I think there's the contract we're thinking will be for 6 months, and then an extension for another 6 months if necessary. You know, given that this is a complicated market, given some of the various challenges that everyone's having with hiring, and especially given the highly specialized nature of this position, I think everyone wants to be realistic about how quickly we'll be able to get someone into this position. I know that our interim acting chief actuary, Mr. Samet, is eagerly approaching retirement and would love for us to hire someone as soon as possible. We will make sure that we hire someone who will fit the bill, right? We're not going to be rushed into anything, and ideally June, but the contract theoretically should allow us to go a little bit longer if necessary.
Yeah,
Take as long as necessary.
The contract would run for a minimum of 6 months with an option to renew for another 6.
Thank you, Basti.
I'm sorry, Russ. Were you calling me, Donald?
Yeah, sorry, Don. I was just giving the recap of the actuarial search committee stuff and wanted to see if you wanted to chime in at all.
Okay, no, I was listening, but I'm actually on another meeting. Yeah, you covered it. I think we're good.
Appreciate it, Donald. All good. So if there's any other questions from trustees, we can sort of try to answer them, and I'm happy to if anyone has any questions specifically about the process or anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk through some of it with you. But really happy with the progress we've been making with our colleagues over at teachers and NYCERS and fire and police on this process. And hopefully we'll find someone super qualified, super great for the position as soon as possible.
Hi, this is Tom Shepard. I have a very quick question. With the process so far, do you anticipate any, I know you said that, and I totally agree with you that, who we pick as an actuary is, or chief actuary is probably one of the most important things we'll do, right? Because they're the ones that make sure that everything adds up the way that it's supposed to. But I guess the question I have is, do you foresee any issue with us actually having this role filled in time or by your target date?
I don't, and I don't want to speak for Mike since he is our interim acting, but we're very happy with Mr. Samet. He's been doing a great job for us so far, and again, graciously agreed to stay on for and delay his retirement so to as help us bridge between our prior chief actuary and who we hire next. So unless Mike's got plane tickets booked to Florida in a couple months, which maybe he does, who's to say? But I think we're in good hands with Mike, and we will be doing our diligence as closely as possible to find someone new qualified to take the reins once we're ready.
Thank you. And thanks, Mike, for not getting that plane ticket just yet.
All right, so calendar item number 24. If there are no further questions from the board, I'd like to move to a vote. Hearing none, all those in favor of calendar item number 24, please voice your approval now. Aye, Russ.
Aye, Donald.
Hi, Tom Shepard.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Angela.
Any opposed or abstentions? The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is with the aforementioned Michael Samet. Calendar item number 25, noting receipt of the fiscal note report. May I have a motion to discuss?
Motion to discuss.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Alan, on the second.
No, actually, Alan had it first. I'll do the second. Sorry about that.
Whatever you want. Mike, our interim chief actuary, is here to tell us about the fiscal note report. Mike, take it away.
Okay, thanks. So as a reminder, any piece of legislation that's proposed that is related to pensions must have a fiscal note before it can be considered by the legislature that shows what the estimated cost is. And as I've mentioned, I'm going to be coming to the board over the next several months while the legislature's still working up through June, and discuss any fiscal notes that we prepared since the last meeting. I'll briefly go through them, just give you a quick description of them. Since the last meeting, there have been 6 fiscal notes produced by this office that relate to BERS. The most significant one, or the one that would have the most significant impact on BERS, is the first one I'm going to talk about. And under this proposed legislation, all eligible employees would be automatically, who are not currently mandated to join BERS, would be automatically enrolled into BERS with the option that they could opt out within the first 90 days. So obviously, if this happened, there would be a large increase in the number of BERS members. We've estimated the cost to be anywhere between about just under $13 million a year and as much as almost $20 million a year. And the reason there's such a big range there is it all depends on whether or not these employees would purchase past years of service. So that's the first one. The other 5 fiscal notes are all related to the same thing, and that was to improve Tier 6. The first one that I'm going to talk about was really referred to as the omnibus bill for Tier 6. And this had made a number of significant changes to Tier 6 benefits. It would have reduced vesting down to 5 years. It would have reduced employee contribution rates. You know, right now under Tier 6, employees contribute anywhere from 3 to 6%, depending on their compensation. It would have reduced that the contribution to 3% for all employees. It would have also reduced the average over which somebody's salary, the number of years that somebody's salary is averaged over in determining their pension, from 5 years to 3 years. And there were a couple of other changes as well. With respect to BERS, this would have increased the employer contributions by about $28 million a year. And just to give you a sense, for all of the NYCBERS, for all 5 of the NYCBERS, it would have increased the employer contributions by over $500 million. So this was really just the first step to see, you know, what each piece would cost so that it could be narrowed down from there. The next one was to exclude overtime or any extra pay outside of regular working hours in determining an employee's contribution rate. So again, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of minutes ago, the amount that a member must contribute depends on their compensation. This would have eliminated any kind of overtime in determining what the contribution is, so in determining what rate a member would have to contribute at. The cost for BERS for that was de minimis. The next one is the exact same thing, but it was only going to eliminate the overtime for a couple of years. And let me just explain this one a little bit. For a number of members who apparently were unhappy that during the COVID period, you know, over the last 24 months or so, they had to work extra hours in their job. And because of that, they earned extra pay. And because of that, they were forced to contribute higher amounts into the pension. And so, you know, obviously they were unhappy with that. And so what this piece of legislation would do, it would eliminate for that 24 months any overtime pay in determining an employee's contribution rate. Again, for BERS, the cost of that was expected to be de minimis. 2 others. The first one is, again, these are all related to Tier 6. As again, the amount that a member must contribute depends on their pay. For example, any pay up to if you're making under $45,000, you contribute 3%. If your earnings are between $45,000 and $55,000, you pay 3.5%, etc. Those dollar amounts, the $45,000 of pay, etc., those are fixed in law. What this piece of legislation would have done would have indexed those or increased those at 3% a year. So the cost for that for BERS would have been approximately $1.6 million a year. The last one would have made the Tier 6 formula much similar to the Tier 4 pension formula, so to improve the benefits much closer to Tier 4. That would have increased employer contributions for BERS by about $5.5 million a year. Now, let me mention one other thing. Since this report was put together, which was about a week ago, 2 pieces of legislation were adopted. Last Thursday, we got some urgent emails that the state was about to pass the budget, and they did want a couple of pieces of legislation in the budget, so they needed our fiscal notes immediately. And it was actually a couple of the pieces that I've just talked about. So 2 pieces of legislation are in the state budget. It was passed, and those are, one would reduce the vesting for members in Tier 6 from 10 years down to 5 years. So you can now get a pension if you've only worked 5 years. You don't need the whole 10 years in order to receive a pension. And the second one is it was very similar to the legislation I talked about a couple minutes ago, which was eliminating the overtime for that 24-month COVID period in determining what rate a member must contribute at. So those were passed. They were after we had put this note together. They'll actually be on next month's report. So I'll talk about it then. So again, no action. Anybody have any questions about any of these at this point?
Thanks for all that, Mike. I guess.
Oh, go
I'm
ahead,
curious.
Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I know. So the auto enrollment. I know. I don't believe that that's been passed yet. We're hoping that maybe it still can. That was like a 5 to 10% increase to employer contributions, give or take. And I know that what actually passed is not necessarily what you presented today. That being said, the second fiscal note there, I think it's number 5, that's almost a $30 million increase in the employer annual contribution based upon a reduction in the vesting requirements. I guess I just have a question from an operational perspective as a Tier 6 member with more than 5 years of service, but less than 10. Am I now statutorily vested in the pension by the stroke of a pen?
Yes.
Woo! I'm talking about.
I'm sure. I don't think it's enough to.
What was that, Mike?
I don't think it's enough to live on. Just so you know.
Well, you know, I'll take what I can get. Any other questions from the board for Mike? Go ahead, John.
Question I have is, everything you went over today, is that in our meeting materials? Okay. All right. Good.
Yes. We in the materials should be all of the 6 fiscal notes that I just talked about, as well as a short summary of the 6.
Okay, thank you. Because being on the labor side, you know, this is a very, very hot topic for us. So great. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So what happens if I'm in the system less than 5 years and I contribute to the system? Then what happens to me if I have to leave my job? Do I get the portion I put in back, or how would that work?
Mike, do you wanna? Would you like me to take this?
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead, Alan.
Hi, Deb. So here's what happens. If you are in the system for 10 or more years, you're locked in, and you would be vested at any tier, right? Now, however, if you leave with less time than that, you have the option of taking your money out. Okay, if you leave with less than 10 years of service, this would be with interest. And it includes AMC, but only the employee portion of AMC. So as of Friday, all of our members now vest with 5 years. So if they have more than 5 but less than 10, and then they leave service, they have a choice, and it's really their decision.
Mike, I have a question. It's Basti. Do any of these that you just described pose a risk to birds in your?
No, because we will adjust the funding to take into account the legislation once it's passed. So in fact, last month, if you recall, I presented the preliminary fiscal year 23 employer contribution. Later on, next spring, we will be issuing the final FY23 contribution, and you will see a slight increase in the contribution to be made because the plan costs more now as a result of this piece of legislation that was passed. So it will be pre-funded just like the rest of the plan.
Well, I wasn't here last month, but thank you for the explanation.
Hi, this is Alan. I just have a quick question. Sorry for being a newbie and just wanted to understand a little bit more on the different tiers. Don't work for the city. Love to work for the city, but right now I work for corporate. So, but the tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4, 6, and everything that you guys mentioned, is that something in the SharePoint that I could familiarize myself with and understand a little bit better?
Actually, it's not really in the SharePoint, but these are public documents. So descriptions of the tiers are public. I'll email you on the side right
Please.
after this, and I'll show you where they are. So they're on our website under publications. I can point you to the specific documents that break down the rights of each tier.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And does this get matched from the contributions with the?
There's no question of matching because this is a defined benefit plan. So basically,
Okay,
you
got
get something that is based on your years of service and your final average salary. This is funded by the employer no matter what it costs. This is why Mike certifies an employer contribution every year.
Got it. Got it. I'm trying to do like compare with my understanding as a 401k, which I got to put in and it gets
Yeah.
matched. So
So
thank you.
our TDA is more like a 401k, but the pension plan is a very different kind of animal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just one last thing on that, I'm sorry, is that when I refer to Tier 6, that is basically for anybody who joined the plan after April 1 of 2012. So it's the newest employees who are impacted by this, or the newest members.
This is Tazeen. Alex, I would also like the directions to those information.
Sure, I can share them with the whole trustee group if that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Tom Shepard. I just have just a clarifying question. So, kind of to be clear, we submitted the notes, right, around auto enrollment, but it did not happen as part of this year's state budget. Am I correct?
Right, it wasn't part of the budget. There is still a pending bill.
Pending, I'm sorry,
yeah. Mhm.
right. Okay, but it hasn't passed yet.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Right, lively discussion about actuarial topics. I love it. Any other questions from the Board of Trustees?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I do have one last question. I know
ahead, Tom.
also we, in times past, had also talked about that contribution, the one where veterans are able to kind of buy service, right, or buy what I forget how it works, but they get to buy time based on like their military service time. Um, uh, I know that every year there's like the request that goes in to make sure that the state kind of pays back for that. Do you know if that was part of this budget where folks could actually start to get reimbursed for the contributions
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, let me give you a quick. So when we
Yeah.
discussed that last month, right? The members' accounts are made whole. They're able to purchase their military credit, no problem. The matter of the state, it's a receivable between the city and the state. The members are unaffected.
Okay, but yeah, I just wanted to know if they had actually started to like pay it back, right? I know
think
we do it as a matter of principle.
No one on this call works for the OMB revenue office. Like that's a city, it's a central city budget question. No one's going to be able to answer that question for you.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your time answering trustee questions. Always good to see you. We don't have any vote on item number 25. So we'll move on to the, let's see, second to last item here. Item number 26 on your programs. Instructions regarding the reinstatement of an administrative expense fee for participants of the BERS TDA program. May I have a motion to consider?
Hi, Tazeen, motion to consider.
Thank you, Tazeen. Second from
John.
Sandy, would you please tell us about this resolution? You're muted, friend. No? Still muted. There you go.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
Yep, very good. There's multiple muting technologies. I'm still learning. So trustees, last year, the Board of Trustees directed staff to analyze and propose a structure for an expense charge to support the administration of the 403B defined contribution plan we refer to as the tax deferred annuity or TDA program. The resolution passed by the board in November asked for a report of analysis by the January Board of Trustees meeting and a final implementation by March 2022. As a result of the failure of the board to meet in January and February and some conclusions that staff has come to as a result of both a financial and regulatory review, we would like to propose that the reporting to the board and the implementation of a new expense regime be postponed. We are pursuing a conversation with the teachers' retirement system about this potential change because we have interrelated regulatory structures. Also, we are in the process of issuing an RFP related to the provision of investment services to the variable annuity fund, which would impact any proposed expense charge implementation. Just to recall that regulations require review every 5 years of the management of the TDA assets, which is what this RFP refers to. Given the complexity of the interrelationships, we are proposing to amend the plan for the analysis and implementation of an expense charge, integrating that timing with the RFP process. The new timing would become married to the expected resolution of the variable annuity fund RFP, which we believe will be concluded by the end of 2022. I or Alex would be happy to respond to any questions you have.
Thanks, Sandy. Any questions from trustees on this is calendar item number 26?
Yeah, this is Tom Shepard. So I guess the question I would have is if you want a delay, like how long of a delay? You know, it wasn't very clear how long you wanted to kind of put this one off.
Well, we would expect the delay to extend through the year 2022. It will hang a bit on the RFP process. It also hangs on some things we can't control. If we choose to implement an expense charge, this involves a change of our rules and regulations, which also must be approved by the TRS Board of Trustees. So that's why we refer to the interrelationship of our regulatory regimes. We cannot do this independent of TRS.
Sandy, suffice to say that at the conclusion of the RFP for the variable annuity program, which you expect to be concluded by the end of the calendar year, along with the resolution sufficiently of some of the legal statutory questions outstanding, you would come back to the BERS board by the end of 2022 with an answer to this question?
That's our expectation, yes.
Does that answer your question, Tom?
I guess I'm a little curious though, right? Like if we were going to be considering this, like, you know, it was going to get put off and then kind of be considered in like January, February, kind of implemented in March, but we couldn't meet in January, February because we didn't have a complete board. Like, why does 2 months now turn into like a whole year? And I guess that's what I'm trying to reconcile here.
Yeah, I'll defer to Alex on this as soon as I offer you my view. This is complicated by our regulatory entanglement with TRS. Alex, if you wanted to add.
So we can discuss this in a little more detail. If the trustees would like to move into attorney-client, I can discuss the legalities of this a little bit more, and we'll have the law department there also. If the trustees would like to go into the legal side of this.
Is the law department on the call right now?
Oh, I thought Marta Ross. Yes, Marta Ross is here.
I don't know. Do we want to do a full attorney-client ad hoc on this, or how pertinent is this to the conversation here, Tom? What do you think?
I guess for me, it's more curiosity. You know what I mean? Like, does it affect my decision a little bit? But you know, I would like to know. Maybe after the call, if I can get a kind of briefing about it, I'd be okay with that.
or any trustee is always, more than welcome to reach out to me or to Sandy, or to any of us, of course.
All right, let's do it that way then.
We can, yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Do we, I'm looking at Donald and John here a little bit, and Nicholas as well. There's going to be a briefing. Do we want to approve this resolution today? Do we want to table it until the following meeting? I'm also looking at Sandy and Alex a little bit for some guidance as well. How do you feel about potentially tabling this until the following board meeting?
So this is something that the board assigned to management. So if the board is prepared to table it, then of course we would not, that would not create a problem for us. It's certainly the board's prerogative to decide.
Do I hear a motion to table calendar item number 26?
I move to table calendar item 26.
I have a second to that motion.
Motion.
Who was that? Who seconded the motion? Sorry. Did someone else second the motion?
I
Just for the
second the
record.
motion. Angela Green, I second the motion.
Thank you,
I'm
Angela.
sorry, I had seconded the motion. It was Gladys Ward.
Thank you, Gladys. If you could just state your name. I don't have everyone's voices memorized. Not yet, at least. All right, so we got a motion and a second to table calendar item number 26. All those in favor of tabling calendar item number 26, please vote now. Aye, Russ.
Aye, Tom Shepard.
Hi, Gladys
Hi,
Ward.
Angela
Alan.
Green.
Hi, Alan.
Aye.
Hi, Basti.
Any opposed or abstentions? The motion to table passes. And Sandy and Alex, if you could arrange for an attorney-client session briefing with Tom and any other interested trustee on this topic, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I would
Thank
be
you.
interested.
All right, folks, the final item on this agenda is calendar item number 27, authorization to amend an agreement with Parsons Floors to furnish, deliver, and install carpeting for the Board of Education retirement system. May I have a motion to consider?
Hi, Tazeen, motion to consider.
I got a first from Tazeen and a second from John. Sandy, please tell us about this resolution.
Sure. So Parson was originally granted a contract through procurement, which was approved by the board a number of months ago to partially replace some of the carpet that was damaged in our office place. This is an extension we found when our diligent procurement and facilities folks reviewed the contract. We had left out a few spots that needed repair, and this is an incremental expenditure on top of the existing contract. Did I get that pretty close, Sabrina? Yeah, you're muted, Sabrina.
Sorry, thank you. You did get it right. It will be an additional cost of $8,333, bringing the total not to exceed cost of the contract up to $83,679.
And these are expenditures covered by our budget, and it does not increase our budget at all. It just allows us to spend the money.
Additional contractual authority. Got it. Any questions from the board on calendar item number 27?
I have a question. What
Go
color
ahead,
are the
Ron.
carpets? I'm only kidding.
I think blue, but I'll get back to you.
All right, hearing no further questions, I'd like to move to a vote on calendar item number 27. All those in favor, please say aye now. Aye, Russ.
Aye.
I did.
Hi, Alan.
Hi,
Angela.
Aye, Tom Shepard.
Hi, Karina.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. That concludes the agenda for this meeting. Next meeting of the BERS Board of Trustees is scheduled for Thursday, May 26th. Details to follow. May I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by John. Can I have a second?
Second, Tom Shepard.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please indicate your approval now. Aye, Russ.
Angela Green.
Hi, Tom Shepard. And we
Aye,
did it a
Russ.
half an hour early.
Hi, Tom Allen.
Don't get
Any
used to it,
opposed
please.
or what's that?
Don't get used to early adjournments at 5:30, Tom. Please.
Hearing none opposed or abstaining, the motion carries. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Thank you for an expeditious April 2022 board meeting. I will see you all in the various committees the rest of the week or in May. And if you're not registered for NYCBERS, you should come. It'll be a great time.
You should.
Okay, see you
That was a
there.
record in
Have a
James
good
Board of
evening,
Trustees.
all.
Thank